Hello everybody, I'm Chenier, and this is the always interesting, always informative joy in our town. I am so excited to talk about fire safety today, general fire safety, meaning overall fire safety. Fire safety we all need to pay attention to. We have Kenyatta Parker with us. He's officer, Kenyatta Parker. He's a public information officer with the Houston Fire Department.
Yes, ma'am.
We are so happy, and I, for one, love this topic, and I shared with you off camera why. Thanks so much for being here and giving us, leaving us without excuse for having tragedy as a result of a fire,
it's
right?
My pleasure, yes.
Thank you so much. Tell us what, everybody wants to be safe. Nobody wants to have a fire, but sometimes our behavior and the carelessness that we show, we don't really realize just what we're setting ourselves up for.
Right.
So there must be some common threads, some common situations you see with when there is a fire, or even just in a general inspection. What do you normally see?
Most fires are due to, as you said before, just carelessness or taking things for granted. Cooking fire is the leading cause of fires in the nation, actually. Yes, careless cooking or cooking left unattended, absolutely. And they cause for most fire deaths, actually, in the nation.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Give us an example of that.
An example of cooking fire is, or that situation, if someone's cooking and the phone rings and they leave the room, or if you know, you're cooking for a long time, you're in an older house, and you know you have the hood vents and you cook grease accumulates up top. So if that's not maintenance, if you have a large fire or that becomes heated enough, that's actually a fire hazard in itself. So you can start a fire up there. But most of the time is people fall asleep with, we call them bean fires, with something on the stove, and they fall asleep. That burns up, and before they know it, they're consumed by the smoke.
Oh my God.
And you have those type of fires.
So the inhalation, the soot, I guess it is.
Absolutely. Most fires and most recoveries, as we say, those who don't make it out of the fires, most of those are due to smoke and inhalation. 9 times out of 10, the fire doesn't even reach the victim. It's smoke that consumes you.
Now, if you're sleeping and a fire happens, is it possible that the inhalation can just overtake you and you just not wake up?
Then that's usually when we give our presentations, that's what we tell them. If you don't have a working smoke detector, a smoke alarm in your sleep, you're going to stay asleep. There's nothing that's going to wake you up.
Dear God.
The smell or the sound of fire, which some people think due to movies or it being dramatized, but that smoke alarm is the only thing that's going to wake you up.
And I know that some people, when the battery goes low and it starts beeping, rather than change the battery, they will just take it out, which renders the alarm ineffective.
Exactly. If you take the battery out of a smoke alarm, you might as well use it as a doorstop, because that's how effective it is. Which leads me to most detectors now that are being manufactured are the new 10-year detectors, to where you're not allowed to take the battery out. So once you operate it or you turn it on, it's good for 10 years. So that takes out the play to, if you're cooking and it starts getting on your nerves, you take the battery out, and 9 times out of 10 you don't put the battery back in. So you have a detector that's useless.
And that's the point of the beeping.
Exactly.
So we should appreciate the beep.
Absolutely.
Rather than try to silence. Well, we should try to silence it by replacing
the
battery, or get what you said, the one that's going to last 10 years.
Yes.
Now, speaking of fire alarms, are there key places that we should be placing them in our homes?
Yes, you want to place them in common area, the common area that are typically in every home. In most homes, there's a common hallway that connects the bedrooms.
Yes.
You want to place one in that common hallway, and if possible, get one in every bedroom, but absolutely in the common area, in that common hallway, and if you have the means to get the detectors in every bedroom.
Now let's talk about fire drills, because I'm a fan. I believe families should practice, and that the parents should, just have like pop-up fire alarms. I mean, the alarm should just go off. What do you say about that?
Absolutely. That's one of the main things. The 3 top things that we ask people to do for fire safety is have your extinguisher, your detector, and have a fire escape plan, which is a fire drill for the home. We call it an EDIT plan, which is escape drill in the home. It's very important, and the phrase we like to use is it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
That's right.
So especially if you have kids, knowing what to do in case of a fire
Yes.
is extremely important, because over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had instances to where everyone's gotten out, but we still have a loss of life because they hadn't practiced the drill. The parents may get out and not see their child.
Lord Jesus.
Child gone next door. Parents think they're still in the house. They run back in after their children and don't make it out, and everybody was out. But if they would have had that fire drill,
Yes.
they would have known everyone meets at a certain place.
Yes.
You don't leave that place until everyone gets together, and everyone would have been able to go home. But that's why it's so important to have that fire drill.
Now, is it helpful? You know, you see those signs that go on the outside of the door of windows that say this is a child's room. Some families don't want to use those because they don't want for someone who means no good to their family to know this is where my children are.
Right.
What do you say about that?
I understand both situations. Being that we want to make our job, or when we get called to a residence, to make it as quickly and efficient as possible.
Yes.
So those signs would help, but I understand not putting them in there. So knowing where your child is, when we get to get to scene, we're going to ask, especially if a parent is out, who's still in the house, where are they?
Yes.
So if you're kind of leery about having those signs, just know when we get there, be able to communicate to us where they are, and we can get there.
Now, what you said about the kitchen really caught my attention because I think what I wanted to go back to, because I think what I understood was that like for instance, a grease fire starts, and then because the vent has oil or whatever, then the fire reaches the hood, and then it blows up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want you to just walk us through that, because when you said it, I didn't understand.
Okay.
I don't know if our viewers did either, but if it's real common, we should kind of rehearse how that happens in our minds for a minute.
Well, it's basically the accumulation of years of cooking. You frying chicken or you're frying whatever, and that grease that's popping up, it just accumulates up top in the hood vent. And that's the place we typically, when we're cleaning, we don't think about cleaning out.
No.
So after years and years of accumulation, you have fire. You have a fire going on top of the stove for a certain amount of time. It heats up that flammable material up there, which
makes it worse.
Makes it worse, and it can actually catch fire, and then you have a hood vent fire.
So otherwise, it would be contained to that skillet. Okay, now you got to tell us, what do we do when something happens? And let's just say you're making something, you walk away, because it doesn't take long, especially an electrical stove. It gets too hot and catches fire. What are you supposed to do? We should have a fire extinguisher.
Yes.
But if you don't?
If you don't have a fire extinguisher, get out of the house and call 911.
Really?
Call the fire
so
department.
Forget the salt. And
if it's a hood fire, there's nothing you can do. If it's a hood vent fire, there's nothing you can do. If it's just a grease fire.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, grease fire, absolutely. If you don't have a fire extinguisher, you want to cover up the pan or the pot that has the grease in it.
Okay.
Fire it dies if you take away the 3 elements of it: oxygen, something to burn, and heat. So if you remove either of those 3 things, the fire goes out. So by covering it up, you're taking the oxygen away, and it will go up. You definitely don't want to put water on it.
That's what I wanted you to say.
Yes.
Because you just think you're going to put water in, but that's going to make it worse.
No, that grease is going to expand to the point to where you have a grease fire, and it's going to explode right in your face.
Can you talk to us about electrical fires?
Yes, electrical fires are pretty common as well, especially in older houses.
Okay.
Because before 1996, there was a certain wiring that were done in houses that were found out to be kind of a fire hazard. So every home thereafter was wired differently, and even those old homes, when inspected, had to get retrofitted to meet the standards. So electrical fires most definitely are something in older houses that happen more commonly than the newer ones.
Okay.
But they do happen, and they're dangerous because those are the ones, if you don't have the extinguishers, not the extinguishers, but the detectors to let you know that something's burning, they're happening in the walls and in the attic, and they can get really bad before you even know about it.
So what do we do to prevent that? Are there things that we should not use, for instance, fragrances that you plug in, or are those safe, or particular types of extension cords? Or
extension cords, I'll speak on both of those. Extension cords, or something that we will say any extension cords or anything that you use electrical, we advise that you make sure that they're UL listed.
Okay.
That's just Underwriters Laboratories. They're specifically made to test products and make sure that they're safe.
So if it's not for outside, don't use it outside.
If it's not UL listed, we advise that you not use it, because that means it hadn't gone through the rigorous testing to make sure that it's safe.
So they do sell things that are
They
not UL
absolutely
listed?
do. Even in your main brand stores.
Really?
Unless you look, some are UL listed, some aren't. So
wow.
I would advise people take it upon themselves to just make sure that they are.
Okay, so just because you're buying it in a store that you would assume has it,
right,
it doesn't mean that is the case. And what about the commercial extension cords and all those things? Or not that. What are those called? The strips?
The strips, yes.
Yeah.
Good question. Those are to be used. A lot of them use it for not circuit breakers, but to be able to plug more than one thing in. They think they're circuit breakers. What we usually tell people is that even though they have 6 or 7 plugs, it doesn't mean you have to use all of them. If you overload it, those can be overloaded. They usually have a trip switch,
right,
that will, that's a safe, fail-safe, but if possible, try not to use every outlet. You don't want to overload any outlet.
Okay, are those safer than extension cords than just the long ones, or does it matter?
I would say yes, because the regular extension cords don't have a trip switch. The breaker or trip switch is in the actual outlet, and that's if your house is retrofitted for that GCF certified.
Is the same for manufactured homes too?
Manufactured homes, I think the newer homes, absolutely, they come with that feature in it. The older homes are the ones that probably don't have it.
Okay, so at the end of the day, we just need to use our common sense, right?
Common sense and practice.
Well, you know what I have to practice? I've got to practice your information real quick. And then I don't know if we'll have time to come back, but I'm sure we'll talk to you again. This is Kenyatta Parker. He is Public Information Officer for the Houston Fire Department. Physical address 600 Jefferson, 6th floor, Suite 624, Houston, Texas 77002. Phone number 832-394-6633. Website houstonfire.org. houstonfire.org. Did I get that right, sir?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Now, at the end of the day, it's all about common sense and what? Common
sense, and just know that 3 things that you can do. We want to make sure you have a working smoke detector,
right,
a fire extinguisher in places that could potentially have a fire, and you have an escape plan.